right, welcome to CityBiz, coming to you live from this wonderful weather here in Fairfield's Central Park. We are actually taping this on December 1st, but it is the November CityBiz Roundup. We have one more CityBiz coming to you before the year ends. I'm your host, Melinda Arndt. We have Councilman Michael Halley, still councilman for another month. And we've got some news and hats to catch you up on. Thanks for joining us here on CityBiz. What about the Spec building? It has a new owner now?
That's right. So the Spec building, was also called a shell building, was a commercial building that was a partnership between the city, the county, and
Fairfield Economic Development?
Fairfield Economic Development Association. I know there was an energy cooperative, I may be forgetting. And so we all basically pooled our resources and built a commercial structure, but left the floor undone inside, because that's typically how these things are done. You build it and you hope someone gets interested in it, buys it, finishes it, and uses it for their operations. So it was only finished a couple years ago, and then we had the pandemic, and now we have a buyer. Sun and Fun Motorsports, is that right?
Yeah, that's what you sent me. He sends me little things.
I knew the Sun and Fun part, I couldn't remember the rest of the name. So they have businesses, one in Iowa City. They're a dealership of kind of outdoor recreational vehicles. So they're actually already started finishing the floor inside, getting it ready for a showroom for their products. And then they're also gonna have a shop in the building for
maybe
repairs.
Not like a chop shop, but kind of.
I hope not. I think it's just for like upgrades, repairs, modifications, that kind of thing. So the owner came to the city council meeting. We had a special council meeting to get this all approved. There were a lot of moving parts within the development agreement. The city's doing kind of a tax abatement situation, which is pretty common for a development agreement.
Yeah.
The taxes that are abated are the taxes for this property alone, so that doesn't affect anyone else's properties. So yeah, they already started. They took ownership in November, and this warm weather has been holding out, and they've started doing their concrete pours, and they want to be open in, I think, March.
Cool beans, Sun and Fun.
Sun and Fun Motorsports.
Well, we've got another outdoor topic we're saving for the end, but let's move on. We have a list here. Resilient Iowa communities.
Yeah, so this is it's a new program. It's organized by the University of Northern Iowa. They have a department that is energy efficiency and general sustainability, and they have a staff member. They wanted to devote part of that person's time to a statewide program that's a voluntary program, very similar to the way Blue Zones was for health and wellness, where communities can voluntarily join, be given a list of goals and activities, and if they fulfill a certain number of them, they get designated
a resilient Iowa community.
Yeah.
And resilient is indicating like economic resilience?
Sustainable resilience.
Sustainable,
so sustainability, you know, that word's been around since the 90s, and now you see the term being replaced a lot with resiliency. Part of that is because we're already seeing the effects, we're living in the effects of climate change. And again, climate change isn't weather, so if you get a fluke warm day in a colder month, that's not climate change, it's change over time on the broad sense. So we're seeing that, and it's about being resilient to those changes. You know, the derecho could be an example of that, the droughts that we've been having, heavier rain events. You know, these are all part of that. And so we want to be resilient on all levels. And but the goals are what you would consider traditional sustainability goals. So energy efficiency, renewable energy, conservation. There's an economic development section. So
I bet.
It's pretty comprehensive. I'm on their advisory board and will continue to be even after I'm no longer with the city council. So now that Fairfield voted to be the first pilot community.
Ooh, we're the first.
Yep, we're the first. The pilot should begin in January. We'll be given the list of activities to choose from. get credit for the ones we've already done, which is great because
Yeah.
we've put solar on a number of city buildings. We'll get credit for all that work and begin working on other goals. Now, the shared sustainability coordinator between the city, the university, and I guess now it's private donors filling in the rest rather
Yeah.
than the county, will be spearheading. So this will
Oh,
provide
great,
some
great,
good direction and support for that position. And then the city will plan to have, to form a sustainability committee. So
Excellent.
we'll get a lot of the people who have been already very involved with this from Sierra Club, I'm sure will want to be part of that. And so you'll have a paid sustainability coordinator supported by a sustainability committee doing work for a pilot program that provides direction and support. So if there are grants available for certain things, that will be included, or best practices from other
Yeah.
communities. So essentially we're giving a huge boost to the city of Fairfield's sustainability efforts that is very much needed. We've kind of lost our momentum when we lost our sustainability coordinator, Scott Tim, years back, and
Yeah.
so this will be a chance to pick up.
Sounds like a great convergence of energy and
It really
ideas
is,
and
yeah.
resources. Yay!
It's perfect timing because the community has been pushing this, wanting the city to do something, and then this pilot program came along right around the time that the sustainability coordinator position will be funded. But if anyone has a business or as an individual wants to help support that endeavor, reach out to the Sierra Club. You can contact.
Well, I know
you'll find their
Patrick
contact.
Bosolt's involved, Michael Moore.
Ann Walton is the
Ann,
president,
okay,
but they're looking
great.
for donations for this first year of the sustainability coordinator. So
Keep it going.
yeah, put that out there.
All right. Well, we have another committee report coming up, our Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee
Yes.
annual report.
Yeah, so this was our last council meeting, the first time that the council heard from this group. They were formed last, I'd say, summer 2020.
Yeah.
A lot of cities were stepping up their inclusion and equity after George Floyd was murdered. So the initial scope, it was called the Diversity Committee, and the initial kind of scope was, let's celebrate our diversity. And it was, kind of like on a, I don't want to call it superficial, but not grappling with deeper issues. So the group itself decided that they could be more than that. And they renamed themselves from Diversity Committee to Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion
Yeah.
Committee, which is more a broader scope. And a lot of what they've been doing is basically educating themselves on these types of issues and how communities can address some very long-standing issues of inequitability. So Fairfield, we don't have any history, that we can point to of prejudicial treatment, but at the same time, we get a lot of students from a lot of different places, and I know for a fact that some of the university students from African countries were scared after George Floyd's death because they thought, is this how black people are treated in the U.S.? Like, could I be killed on the street,
And there
no
have
reason?
been a few who had reported being jeered at or, rude things said
Yeah.
as they were walking, because they walked down to Hy-Vee and anyway.
So there are people from places that, have come from really bad situations that, countries that are experiencing civil war, that I've met here in Fairfield. So it's important to just be mindful that people come from a diverse background, and being sensitive to that is just being a good neighbor. It's being a good citizen. So this group's working on some future maybe recommendations they can make to City Council, or just some activities they can encourage
neat.
some of the city departments to be part of. Mostly what they've done is they've worked on some story time topics at the library, and there's a lot of books out there right now that just are,
Yes.
gently and not, I don't want to say in any way indoctrinating. I think there's some concern from one citizen that, that they were going to try to convince people of something, but it's very light, but how would I say? Like
Educational.
Educational, yeah.
Yeah,
And it
definitely.
Just,
Justice Sotomayor's got a couple of children's books out about just ask and
yeah, just being more open to the different types of people in the world. Yeah.
Well, I was wondering what that, I'm glad they have some recommendations for some actions moving forward.
Well, and they want to step it up coming up. Like they've really been more internal, and they want to engage more in 2022. So expect more from them.
All right. And we might also expect more from an outdoor project, the Lamson Woods Restoration Project.
Yes.
Seems to be moving ahead.
It's moving really quickly. So we reformed the city's Arbor Committee last year,
right,
and immediately started working on a management plan for Lamson Woods. It's a state preserve, and it didn't have any sort of management plan
right,
aside from kind of the automatic one when it gets made a preserve. And I think 78, there was kind of an automatic plan, and it said do nothing. So you couldn't remove any trees, any plants. You had to leave it alone. So what we've seen is it's transitioning from an oak hickory woodland, which has an inherent value that oak trees specifically offer more to wildlife than pretty much any other tree species.
Yeah.
So there's a value to the wildlife to have those trees, but what happens is they grow in a situation where there's very little shade. So what most likely happened was that area was probably clear cut at some point in the past, and the large oaks that are there now sprouted up where they had that opportunity when there was no shade. But now the larger oaks are shading the younger oaks. So the younger oaks aren't able to grow because it's so crowded. So what we're getting is buckeye, which are not really native. We're getting
kind of invasive.
Yeah, we're getting some invasives out there because the birds eat the seeds and spread the seeds. So if action isn't taken, that we won't have an oak hickory preserve. We'll have other trees and other plants, many non-natives, and just not as good for wildlife, not as majestic. I mean, even aesthetically, a large oak is there's just something about a large oak that a buckeye or hackberry, they just don't get as big and not as grand. So the plan is move forward, is a tree harvest of a certain area of the woods that's overcrowded, and the funds that they'll come to the city, because this is, these are trees that are worth something. So the company that was chosen will come in, take the trees that have been marked. These have been approved both by the current district forester for the Department of Natural Resources and the retired district forester. They work together to mark the trees. And then that had to be approved by the Department of Natural Resources State Preserve Board. So it's all been looked at to make sure it made sense. And we stayed away from any sensitive areas. So these trees will be harvested this winter, and then those funds that come in will be available for understory management, which is taking out the invasives in the understory. So those two things combined should release the next generation of oaks. So apparently this was a really good year for acorns. So the acorns have fallen, and now they just need sunlight, basically, something they haven't gotten for decades. So by opening up the canopy a bit, the next generation will be released, and future generations will enjoy a true oak hickory woodland and all the wildlife that benefit from that, rather than what it would become were we not to manage it.
Wow. So if people are out walking, taking winter walks, which I know some of us are prone to do even when it's nippy out, there'll probably be signage, or at least if you see people working, you'll know what's going on, but they'll probably rope off certain areas
it'll be taped off. Please do not go past the tape. We had a lot of people ignoring boundaries for the Step 2 sanitary sewer.
Yeah, and that was not good.
And it's like, I know you want to take a walk, but when trees are coming down, it's your own risk. And there aren't that many entrances to the woods, fortunately. And they will be warded off, but this could happen yet December. So
Lamson Woods.
Lamson Woods. Keep your eyes peeled for that.
All right. So this is as I said, we have one more episode of CityBiz coming to you before the year's end. Who knows if we'll be able to do it outside? We have been blessed with wonderful weather for these last several months. We've done them all outdoors. So we'll see, and we'll see you on the next episode of CityBiz. Michael.
See you next time.
And Melinda. Ciao.